and welcome to The Trade. Before we get to the charts, time to look at what traders are watching out there. And a group of European leaders have agreed at a meeting in Paris that they're ready to give Ukraine security guarantees, but mentioned it would be dangerous to conclude a ceasefire without a peace agreement, this according to an EU official. And European defence stocks surged as government faced pressure to hike military spending in the region following calls from Washington for higher expenditure ahead of those talks between the US and Russia on a possible Ukraine peace deal. Oil prices strengthened as an attack on an oil pipeline pumping station in the Caspian Sea slowed flows from Kazakhstan, and investors monitored developments of a possible Moscow-Kyiv ceasefire agreement. Gold prices back above $2,900, supported by a weaker dollar and fears of an impending trade war. And the Japanese yen rose in a boost from upbeat Japanese growth data, while the dollar hovered near its lowest level in 2 months after investors dialed down their bets on US tariffs. Let's get into the technicals now. Mandy Rafsanjani from tradingpsychology.com joins me. Now, Mandy, good to see you. FOMO has many faces. Traders often overestimate how much profits they can make. Tell us about the FOMO trade.
Hi, Juliet. Thank you for having me. So, yeah, I've got a few friends who used to trade on the floor of the CME in Chicago. And what was very common experiences was that they would make their profits in the morning and then give it all back in the afternoon. And so there was this saying, traders underestimate or overestimate how much they can make in one day and underestimate how much they can make, over the whole week.
I guess so.
Because they try to make it all in one day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had a friend, actually, I met Linda Rushke's friend, Lisa, who was the first female trader on the NQ floor. And she's tall and long blonde hair, just beautiful and super smart and nice as well. So she would trade in the morning. And when she had a good profit, unlike her male colleagues, she would go shopping and buy herself a nice pair of shoes or something, because her motto was, I'd rather spend that money on a nice pair of shoes than giving it back to to the market. So yes, I also see the same in traders, that they day trade, they make the money in the morning and then give it all back. So we call it the boom bust cycle, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you think, though, that when some day traders make really good returns in the morning, Mandy, then potentially it gets taken away in the afternoon?
So what I found, what is really useful for them is to understand the time of day function. For everyone's, of course, something different, but these are the three main experiences that I see. So they use the same strategy in the morning like they use in the afternoon. And that's also something that I learned from Linda Rushke. In the morning, she uses 5-minute bars, because she says it's nice and clean. But in the afternoon, when the bigger traders come in, 5 minutes gets really noisy. So she goes to the 15-minute bar. And, when the institutional traders, they trade bigger position, and that's what's causing the messy price action. And also price just behaves differently at different times of the day, which is called a time of day function. So that's something to consider that quite a few traders weren't aware of. And also what I see is they underestimate how much fatigue we get during the day. I mean, our emotional mental capital gets drained so much when we are not conscious of refilling it consciously and repeatedly. So most of my traders, they don't take a break, they don't eat properly, they sit from early in the morning till afternoon on the screens, and that's not helpful and tiring. And the third reason that I see a lot is that they start focusing on becoming defensive. So they make their profits. And one would think being defensive of their profits, not wanting to make a loss, is a good thing. But what happens unconsciously, that they shift their focus from being focused on their strategy and trading well and focusing on their edge, to not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to have a loss, and then becomes more emotional than strategic.
Mandy, I have been in this game a very long time. Chris Hemsworth has never come up in notes in a financial interview. Tell me why we're looking at Chris Hemsworth when we're looking at trading.
So there's this really interesting show called Limitless, and it plays on Disney Plus if you want to watch it, and I think also on some other channels, but I saw it on Disney Plus. So he has to do this stress exercise. He goes to a Navy SEAL and they have this pool. He gets his feet and hands tied up. And then he has to do this thing where he floats down to the ground in the pool 20 times and pushes himself up to get some air and then floats down again. And after 3 or 4 times, you can see how he's stressing out, he's gasping for air, and he fails miserably. And there's of course a psychologist that helps out, and she starts talking to him about self-talk. And he shares that his self-talk went, oh my God, I can't do it. My lungs are hurting. I'm going to die here, like catastrophizing. He said, even though I knew they're not going to let me die, I was still struggling so much. And then she taught him empowering self-talk and remembering that he trained for it. And so he started saying, I can do this. I've trained for this. I just need to calm down my breathing and then I can do it. And so that's what he did. And you see in the show the moment when his nervous system calms down and he's just doing it effortlessly and he aces that test. It's the same with traders. Their self-talk, when they have a loss, becomes so self-defeating. I'm such an idiot, a few swear words. Why did I? I shouldn't have. And it becomes so disempowering. And then the survival kicks in, like with Chris Hemsworth in the water. Even though our survival is not really threatened as traders, but it feels like that for our little unconscious and for our nervous system. So use the power of our self-talk and of our mind. Yeah.
All right. Well, from Chris Hemsworth to Roger Federer, this is getting interesting, Mandy. What can we learn from Roger, one of the best tennis players of all time, how to move on after we've made mistakes, or I guess the benefit of positive self-talk?
Yeah, so Roger Federer, when you see him at the beginning of his career, and he talks about that in this documentary on Netflix that I watched, he talks about how he was the same. He was being down on himself and he would get aggressive and throw his racket. Like you don't see that kind of Roger later on in his career, right? He's always calm and collected. And he talks to himself like that. He's like, that's okay. I can have 50% unforced errors and still win. I've trained for this. I just need to stay focused and use my rational statistical thinking. And Linda Rushko, by the way, she talks the same way to herself. She's like, I can do this. I've got an epic team around me. I just need to focus and leave the past behind in the past. And I just focus on the future where my next great setup is. I can do this.
All right,
so massive difference.
Yeah, it's all about the power of the mind, isn't it, Mandy? So I guess essentially focus more on the positives rather than some of the fear when you're trading.
Absolutely. The fears are there. And Chris Hemsworth talks about that he still has those fears now as an accomplished actor. And by the way, one of my best traders, he makes several $1 million a year. He has so many fears as well. That's completely normal. It's about how we manage that fear. And one great insight is also when we understand our market so well. I just saw before on LinkedIn when I was putting my post up, this cocoa trader, and he talks about how they actually use gasoline prices to analyze the cocoa prices. Because guess what? When people fill up their cars, they get chocolates. Now, when the fuel prices are high, they don't fill up their cars as many times and they don't get as many chocolates. So when you understand these specific idiosyncrasies of your market, that gives you also a lot of certainty and helps you to trade with more intention. And then, we don't need to go into crazy mode and try to make losses back. We can be more intentional and say, I wait for this time of day function to then make that loss back and increase my profits.
Chocolate, Chris Hemsworth, Roger Federer, had it all, Mandy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juliet.
All right, that does it for this edition of The Trade. Be sure to join us next time.